welcome to Couch Talks with Nerdfather CJ and me, Sil, and Noel, who has a new scarf, and Etta,
who I don't
also
know if you
has a
guys
new
have actually
scarf.
met yet. Not at least so perfectly framed. So today we wanted to talk about Sonic a little bit more in depth. It's been a little over a week since our review of it, so it's been out for a minute. So I think we're just we kind of built in a little outline here. We're gonna just start with the beginning of the movie and work our way through, and then talk about some of the editing / cinematography that kind of stood out to us and the way they told the story. So to start with, you mentioned Zill, that the beginning of the movie is something that was bothering you.
Oh, yes. So, disclaimer, I haven't read all the comics, so if you feel like just outing yourself to the world as a Sonic the Hedgehog nerd, you can always correct us about anything in the comics, or, just in general. I don't, sit down and study the lore as much as I enjoy the games. But, yeah, I didn't understand why the Echidnas were attacking Sonic. I get they said, oh, they want his power, but, why? I don't know. That just felt very out of character to me.
Yeah, apparently they're usually framed as defenders, is what you said?
So, there's... I say I don't study the lore, now I'm gonna explain the lore to you. So, there's Knuckles, is the one you're familiar with.
Yeah.
He's the last of them, essentially. At least in the games. He's pretty much the only one, except for when you go, time or dimensionally traveling. So, he's been tasked with defending the Master Emerald or the Chaos Emeralds, or both, depending on the game. And that's pretty much his life, as he does that and defends his island. And as long as you aren't after his stuff, or framed for being after his stuff that he's supposed to take care of, then, he leaves you alone. And then, the other echidnas that you meet are all, very respectable, not going to go out and murder a child for their superpowers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I obviously can't answer that question. I don't know the Sonic universe super well. I played the games a long time ago, and then I haven't really touched much of the Sonic verse since then, except for the occasional cartoon episode.
Yeah. Played the games back when all the story was in the booklet that came with the game.
Yeah, basically. So, I mean, that sounds really interesting. I'd like to also know more about that. So if anybody knows, please let us know. I might do some of my own research after this as well. But one thing that Zill and I talked about a little bit was we really liked the ring system they had in the movie. I thought it was really cool myself. Gave more meaning to the rings and made them a lot more important than just, oh no, I've lost my rings. All the Sonic movie or games I've played anyway, where it's just you basically just have these rings and they're effectively just your life resource, and otherwise they don't do much.
It was also a fun little callback to the giant ring that you could get at the end of a level that you have to jump through to get the bonus level. It takes you to another world, in a sense. So that was a fun reference to that.
Yeah, so that's how they use the rings in the movie. So I thought it was pretty cool. I thought Kid Sonic was adorable. I kind of wish that he had spent more time with Kid Sonic. It probably, wouldn't actually be necessary or needed, but I thought it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and then, Kid Sonic is running around his island, doing his thing, and gets back to who he's living with, the owl person, whose name I can't remember. It's been a week. Do you remember?
No.
No? Okay. Well, the echidnas they seem to end up murdering his caretaker, and his caretaker sends him away with the rings to Earth because, we need to end up somewhere convenient. So, I mean, the story progresses. You get to see kind of a day in the life of Sonic when he's a little older. I don't remember how much time they say passes in the movie. I don't know if they actually say, to be honest.
I don't remember.
But they do basically do the whole sometime later. I don't remember if they specify an amount of time later. But, and you get to see a day in the life of Sonic and kind of, him treating the town that he has ended up next near as kind of his extended family, more or less.
Pretty much.
And
he's adopted
Donut Lord.
Yeah, he's adopted the other main characters as his parents.
Yeah, effectively. But this does eventually come into a head where he gets really upset because he's spent, at this point, years alone and lets off a giant, effectively an electromagnetic impulse, is what they said. Yeah. Knocks out, the whole Pacific Northwest power grid. And then, the military shows up, which, they never actually call it gun, like in the video games, but it's the American military. And, and to me, like, eventually, he goes to Donut Lord for help, which is the first time they've actually, like, interacted directly.
Donut Lord is a cop, by the way.
Yes, he's the sheriff of the town. Whose actual name I can't remember because nicknames are way better anyway. But their first interaction to me presents its own unique problem because you get the speedster problem that I always question, where how do you catch a speedster off guard, because apparently it just happens even when they're looking directly at you. Though you had brought up a couple interesting points concerning this specific interaction where Sonic gets tranquilized by Donut Lord.
Yeah, it mostly seemed like he wasn't expecting it to be a problem. Like, he was like, oh, a dart, whatever, and then gets hit by it, and then it's like, oh, that actually does something besides just be a dart. But it is, still a little weird that he doesn't just dodge it.
Yeah, so, I mean, to me it's just the classic speedster problem of, like, I do feel like there's very few ways you can catch a speedster off their guard, and that's to attack them when they're obviously not aware of you. But so often I feel like they manage to catch speedsters off guard when the speedster is basically staring them dead in the eyeball. Mm-hmm. So that's like one of the biggest problems I have with the movie. As far as problems go, I feel like it's pretty minor. This definitely didn't ruin the movie for me or anything.
I think, and this is another thing that's like, it did not kill the movie for me or anything, but I think the Olive Garden thing was really weird.
I don't remember this Olive Garden thing.
They kept making jokes about Olive Garden where it was definitely an ad for Olive Garden, but they thought if they were hammy enough about it, it'd start to be funny.
Oh. I mean, yeah. I didn't really notice because I just embraced that kind of humor, I guess. Okay. So throughout the whole movie, like, it happens a few times where they really kind of embrace the classic boss mechanics of the video games, which was really cool. It wasn't like 3 hits and it's dead or anything, but it was, very much a similar setups.
Yeah, like there's this car chase scene where Robotnik is behind them and has, like, basically a tank. And they defeat the tank, and the tank falls over, and out of it falls a smaller tank. And then they defeat that tank, and there's this little bitty thing that flies up to them and is about to self-destruct.
Well, first
or
it's like
fire a laser.
First,
or
it's like it goes from like a tank to like a go-kart basically, to like a single-wheeled go-kart.
Oh yeah, there's that step too.
And then there's just like the little helicopter like bug. Yeah, so there's a lot of that kind of stuff, which was super duper cool, and definitely a tribute to, video game mechanics as a whole, but specifically Sonic in this case, obviously. But yeah, so it was really neat. So one thing that, I noticed it, but I didn't really super question it. But Zill brought it up, and it was
Oh,
about
yeah.
the Sonic shoes, right?
Yeah, so he's wearing shoes, as Sonic does. And towards the beginning, like about a quarter of the way into the movie, I think it happens before that also, but Robotnik is like tracking him by his footprints, but his footprints aren't shoe-shaped. They're shaped like tiny human feet, which, first of all, why are they tiny human feet? But also, what happened to the shoes? And then you get halfway through and you find out that he's just worn holes basically all the way through the soles of his shoes.
Yeah.
And they get replaced. So it's like, okay, at least you addressed this. It was still an odd decision, but okay.
So we'd like to talk a little bit about cinematography. We don't really consider ourselves professionals, but before we move into that, we wanted to talk about characters and that we liked and other various interactions. I actually really liked the interactions between Dr. Robotnik and Agent Stone, and just Agent Stone as a character. I thought really helped Jim Carrey and Robotnik really pull the character together in a lot of different ways. Especially at the end of the movie, because he's carrying Agent Stone around, who he's just drawn on a rock, full, like, volleyball Wilson style.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and so that was one of my favorite, not main characters, because you obviously have Donut Lord, Sonic, and Robotnik are effectively the three main characters. Donut Lord has a wife that is kind of a mainish character, but not, I wouldn't say they're center stage, but they're definitely a primary character. And kind of the same role as Agent Stone, kind of a support main character, so to speak. But Zill's favorite character, what was your favorite character?
What was my favorite character? I don't know.
That was not a main character, obviously.
That was not a main character. Man, didn't know you were going to throw this question at me. What? Okay. Calm down over there. I did like the I've already forgotten his name. Chainsaw McGee is his name.
Chainsaw McGee. I think his name was Crazy Carl.
Yeah, there's
Hi.
this guy who knows about Sonic and the entire town has labeled him insane.
Yeah,
Which
actually,
is fair because he sounds like a conspiracy theorist. But he's actually right.
yeah, one of my favorite scenes actually early in the movie was Sonic playing with Crazy Carl, basically. I really enjoyed that. That was fun. I also really like the daughter of
Yeah.
I can't remember the wife's actual name. I think he calls her Bendy Lady.
He
or
calls her
something.
Pretzel Lady because
Yeah.
she does yoga.
Yeah. But the daughter was really funny because the sister-in-law, because they end up having to restrain her for various reasons, like not going to the authorities about Sonic, as an example, and the daughter's just full on like enjoying a whole new level of freedom because they just left the daughter and her mom alone at the house, like.
Yeah.
So, cool. So, some of the cinematography that I would like to talk about was I really like the editing and the timing of the movie seemed overall really good. Like all the cuts that I remember and were paced well and didn't seem out of place. There wasn't like fast cuts going in like a very calm scene or anything like that.
The only thing that was kind of weird from a storytelling perspective is they had that framing of like, here's me right now. I'm gonna catch you up. Start from the beginning. Move forward. And then it's like, okay, we're caught up now. Which is an interesting framing if it's done well. But they didn't do anything with that. Like, they literally only did this is me right now. Let me catch you up. And then they played the first half or 3/4 of the movie.
It was like
and they
3/4
said,
of the
okay,
movie.
we're caught up now.
That
was all they did with it.
I'd actually kind of forgotten about that because the movie definitely starts out with Sonic running from Robotnik's like flying death ray machine.
Yes.
And then does the whole like pause rewind bit, which admittedly is fun most of the time.
I just felt like with that character, they could have done a lot more with that framing.
Yeah, I feel like
actually did.
there could have been more there. You're right. Yeah. I think it was done well. Not to say, because it was definitely done well.
Yeah, I don't think it detracted anything. I think it was just a missed opportunity.
Yeah. That's fair. I'd actually kind of forgotten about that. The movie as a whole, though, didn't really have any huge glaring plot holes that I can think of. Yeah. So, like, some movies definitely get ruined from these giant plot holes. I feel like every movie, to one degree or another, has some plot holes, but this movie didn't seem to have any, like, fatal plot holes that end up ruining the entire universe or anything.
Yeah.
So that was positive. The only plot thing that I kind of wish they'd done is bring in some of the other characters, such as Tails, a little earlier rather than at the end of the movie. But
right.
On the other hand, I can also see why they would not want to do that yet, because the movie franchise potentially is just getting going. So why spend extra money on trying to make other characters happen, but also potentially would have made the movie feel crowded because you already had so many characters. You already had Dr. Robotnik, you had Agent Stone, you had Pretzel Lady and Donut Lord, and like the daughter, and there was a lot of characters. So maybe adding Tails earlier in the movie could have made it feel really crowded and detracted from the movie. So maybe it's a good thing they didn't. I definitely would have liked to have seen it a little more, but I'm just some guy talking to a camera. So I really like a lot of the sounds they use. They used to feel like a lot of the more classic sounds, or at least tried to mimic a lot of classic sounds as closely as possible. Like even when the rings fell, they sounded a lot like the classic Sonic "I've Lost My Ring" sound. Stuff like that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I liked how they did that. It was this like, oh hey, that's from that, but it also didn't necessarily feel out of place.
Yeah. And I do feel like they'd kind of, what's the word, isn't like, modernize is the wrong word, but they brought those sounds forward, because I feel like most of them were fairly unique, but there were enough of the classic elemental sounds to like, for you to make that connection, but then also sound very good. Also, as a whole, I feel like all the actors in the movie did extremely well.
Yes.
Because a lot of these movies where you have...
Except in the Olive Garden scenes.
Except in the Olive Garden. They did, for some reason, mention the Olive Garden a lot. I have to look into their funding, perhaps. But I do feel like the acting as a whole was pretty good, pretty spot on. I can't think of any... I'm not the best judge of acting in general, to be honest. It has to be pretty bad for me to notice that it's bad acting. But... there was no spot where I was just like, this character's just obviously not feeling what they're trying to portray right now, or anything like that. Of course, also, like, when you're dealing with, I just found this alien in my garage. Like, how are you supposed to feel about that? There's a whole array of ways you can feel about that.
I feel like any response is believable.
Yeah. But yeah, I that's all I have for my notes. Do you have anything you'd like to add that we didn't talk about?
Do you want to talk about the rest stop scene or wherever they went?
Oh, the tavern. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in the previous movie, but that was definitely one of my favorite scenes, because you got to see Sonic kind of just have a good time with people, and that was a lot of fun. I think it was the only time in the movie where he actually had chili dogs. Which, if you've ever watched the cartoon, is a kind of a trope. He loves his chili dogs. And it's great because it's later on when they make their escape. Donut Lord. I wish I could actually remember his name. But Donut Lord is like, what did you eat? But I really like the tavern scene. Is that your favorite scene, or?
Maybe.
I mean, there are a lot of really good spots. I think that really just kind of, it cemented the like road trip feel without going too overboard on a road trip.
Right. I also liked we don't like your kind. What kind of hipsters?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I mean, suffice it to say, they get to this bar, tavern, and, they order their food, and some guy walks up to them, is like, we don't like your kind here. And Sonic, I think it was Sonic that said,
Yeah.
what kind is that? Hipsters, And
then Sonic grabs a beer bottle and tries to smash it over this guy's head, but, is, like, this big. So that doesn't work very well.
Yeah, I mean, also, that just doesn't work as well as you might think it does from the movies, how the movies portray it,
Yeah.
having experimented.
Okay.
So it's pretty great. It wraps up with Sonic basically making it so that they can make their grand escape by taking some toilet paper and just like stringing it together to cause all kinds of mayhem. It's fantastic. Well, with that, guys, we're gonna let you go. Thanks so much. Please leave some comments if you have anything else to add or say or correct for us. Thanks so much for listening. Have a magical day.